Our scripture text for this third Sunday of Advent is John chapter 1, verses 6 through 8, then verses 19 through 28. Hear this good news. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light, but he came only as a witness to the light. Now this was John's testimony when the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him who he was. He did not fail to confess, but confessed freely, "I am not the Messiah." They asked him, "Then who are you? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" He answered, "No." Finally they said, "Who are you? Give us an answer to take back to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself?" Then John replied in the words of the Isaiah the prophet, "I am the voice of one calling in the wilderness, make straight the way for the Lord." Now the Pharisees who had been sent questioned him, "Why then do you baptize if you are not the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor the prophet?" "I baptize with water," John replied, "but among you stands one you do not know. He is the one who comes after me, the straps of whose sandals I am not worthy to untie." This all happened at Bethany, on the other side of Jordan, where John was baptizing. So on the first Sunday of Advent, it was about the apocalyptic, and it was the need to recognize that we needed to make a big change. Last week, the second Sunday of Advent, we realized to take a spiritual journey, we needed not only to be nurtured, but we also needed a guidebook. And that particular text helped give us the guide of what it is we need to do to make our path straight, to be able to go on our journey. And today, the third Sunday of Advent, it seems to me that the glaring question that it is asking us is this: who are you? So the Gospel of John is one which is the mystic gospel. Most everything in it is symbolic or metaphor. So in this gospel, it starts out saying that John was a witness to the light, but he himself was not the light. Now, the whole idea of being a witness, an eyewitness, this is something John was not talking about somebody else told him, but something that he had experienced. He had experienced this enlightenment. He knew personally that gnosko kind of knowing, that experiential knowing. He knew this light. So when he was a witness for it and he testified about it, it was coming from a place of experience and personal knowledge. As he is going about his business and he's preaching, large crowds are starting to gather. His popularity grows. His power and his influence continues to grow. Now, those who were the religious leaders and those who were in power are getting concerned. So they want to find out, who is he? So they sent some priests and some Levites to go in and find out the answers to these questions. Who are you? I think that it is so interesting how I see this passage this year. So they come up and, "Who are you and why are you doing what you're doing?" And he says, I came to be a witness. I came to straighten the path, to help people to be able to find this light, to become enlightened by Spirit and connected to God in a more direct path. That was his purpose. "Well, are you the Messiah?" He says, "No, I'm not the Messiah." "Well, then are you Elijah?" "No, I'm not Elijah." "Well, are you the prophet?" "No, I'm not the prophet." "Well, who are you then, and why are you doing what you're doing?" Now, it's interesting that they ask him specifically about Elijah, because you see, during the first century, the Jews thought that the beginning of the Messianic age, Elijah would return. And even now, for Jewish people, as they celebrate the Seder meal, they will have an extra plate at the table, and a cup, which is the Elijah cup. And the tradition is you leave a window open or you leave the door cracked so that if Elijah returns on this night, there is a place at the table for him to eat, all right? So this is a part of that tradition, and it's still even now an expectation that the Messianic age will be ushered in when Elijah returns. So this is why they're asking John the Baptist these questions. Is he that guy? Has Elijah returned to usher in the Messianic age? And Elijah says no. John the Baptist says, no, I am none of these people. I'm not these. Who is he? He was John the Baptist. That's who he was. And he had a great deal of clarity about not only who he was, but also his purpose in this world. Now, this is important that he knew this because, you see, his ego did not get in the way of him fulfilling his purpose. If he had a big ego and he was not clear and confident in who he was as a human being and what he was supposed to be doing with his life, then it might have been easy to get caught up in his fame and his influence and his power and his popularity, you see. But because he knew who he was, it was his ego mind with his spirit that were working together for him to fulfill his purpose, which was to testify to the light of God, the Spirit of God, to help people become enlightened so they too can be witnesses to this light. And that's important. That's important. He knew who he was. He knew exactly who he was. And that is a question I think that we all must ask ourselves as we are preparing ourselves for the advent of God's coming into our life and into our world. And also not only coming into our lives, but empowering us to go out into the world to also be witnesses to this light. John came to baptize. The Greek word for to baptize means to immerse. And in a symbolic sense, that's what it means. What are you immersed in? See? John was immersing himself into being a witness to the light. John was immersing himself and being a powerful voice to help people to prepare themselves for the one who was coming. That's what he was immersing himself into. Now, the reality is for all of us, we are born into a family and we're immersed into whatever that family is about. We are immersed in our skin color and what that's going to mean for us. We're immersed into a religion or a non-religion. We're immersed into a culture, into a language. And as we enter this world, we have a lot of people and the culture and the language and the religion, all these influences, all defining who we are. It seems that it's an inherent part of the human experience that cultures like people to kind of all be the same because there aren't any surprises. And those people who are different usually find growing up in this world a very, very difficult experience, more difficult than normal. But that's the reality. Other people are constantly defining us. Now, there are some people who know early on who they are, and others try to define them and mold them into an image they need them to be. They rebel immediately. And yes, life is tough for them and also for the parents and also for all those people trying to mold them into something that they were never meant to be. But John answers a very powerful question that the others who tried to mold him asked. Who are you and why are you doing what you're doing? I'm going to ask the same thing. Who are you? Who are you? Do you know who you are? And why are you doing what you're doing? Are you being the person that your parents wanted you to be? Are you being the person that your religion wanted you to be? Are you being the person that your culture, your language, or your skin color wanted you to be? Who are you and why are you doing what you do? Are you being the truest sense of who you are, and are you immersed in activities that are a true reflection of who that is? Does that make sense? One of my favorite artists of all time, an impressionist named Auguste Renoir, and one of his quotes is, "I am the luckiest man on this earth. All I know how to do is paint, and that's what I do." Wow. For him, it was pretty easy. He knew early on who he was and what he wanted to do, and he did it for his whole life. So who are you, and what do you find yourself immersed into? And what I also see in this passage is this, that John distinguishes the fact that what he baptizes people in water, it's something that's earthly, that's a cleansing, it's a form of cleansing, that he baptizes with water, but the one who was to come after him baptizes in spirit and in truth, all right? So it seems to me that becoming whole, becoming fulfilled, to becoming self-actualized is a two-part process. Part of it is, who am I in this world, and my skin, and my culture, and my language, and my religion, and my education? Who am I in this world? But then there's a second part of it too. As we become clear about who we are as a human being on this planet and fulfill our purpose on this planet, then we start getting closer to becoming fully that spiritual being that God created us to be as well. It's both and. So the Baptist, John, was able to help people to answer that question, who am I? Who are you? Why are you doing what you do? That's what the leaders say. If you're not the Messiah, you're not Elijah, and you're not the prophet, then why are you baptizing people? I'm baptizing people to be a witness to the truth and the light. That's what his purpose was. He knew it, and that's what he was doing. So what do you find yourself being immersed in? And are you clear about who you are? Are you fulfilling your purpose in this life? Are you being the person that you feel that you were created to be? One of the most powerful lessons that I learned in my 50s was this formula: be, do, and have. Much of humanity lives their lives this way: have, do, and be. What's the difference? If I have $1 million and I can do anything I want, then I can become this person. But that's not the way it works. And I am a witness to this fact because I employed it in my own life. I ask the question, who do I want to be? And then, after I am clear about who I'm going to be on this planet and in this life, then I ask, what do I need to do to become that person? And that's what helped empowered me in my own life to bring clarity to self and purpose on this world. And the have takes care of itself. I don't even think about the have anymore. Who do I want to be, and what must I do to become that person? And that's kind of what I'm seeing, the action that I'm seeing in that passage for this week. They're confused about John. He doesn't seem to be meeting their expectations. John was never going to be the Messiah. John was never going to be Elijah. John was never going to be the prophet. John was going to be John. I am not going to be my father Raymond. I'm not going to be my mother Joyce. I'm not going to be my favorite teachers or professors. I'm not going to be my football coaches or my athletic coaches. I'm not going to be my mentors. I am Barton Buchanan. That's who I am. And what I immerse myself in is a mirror or reflection of that sense of identity. But even as I become clear about who I am, I also realize that who I am and what I'm choosing to do and the person that I continue to become is not just mutually exclusive to the Spirit and to the light and to enlightenment. Who is Barton Buchanan in relationship with the divine? I came across this beautiful story that I want to share with you. And I found it so touching and profound. And I hope you discover the same. There was a person who went to Russia after the Cold War. And he came to this orphanage. And this was an orphanage for children who had been completely abandoned and children who had been abused. And while he was there, he was telling them the Christmas story. Joseph and Mary, the trip to Bethlehem and the stable and the shepherds. And he said that the children were just sitting and hanging on every word of the story. When they completed the story, then they created an opportunity for these children to use their creative skills to build a manger. And they took little strips of yellow paper to bake the hay in the manger. And before he went to Russia, he had people cut out these little baby figures and tan cloth so that they could put the baby Jesus in the manger, right? So as the children are making their mangers and as they're getting their little scene put together, he's walking around and he's looking at what they're doing and just observing. And then he comes across this one little boy named Misha who puts 2 babies in the manger. And he's curious about this, so he has the translator go and ask Misha, who was 6 years old, why he chose to put 2 babies in the manger. And I'm going to read this portion to you because it is so beautiful, I don't want to miss anything by trying to paraphrase. Okay? Then Misha started to ad-lib. He made up his own ending to the story, as he said, "And when Mary laid the baby in the manger, Jesus looked at me and asked me if I had a place to stay. I told him I have no mama and I have no papa, so I don't have any place to stay. Then Jesus told me I could stay with him. But I told him I couldn't because I didn't have a gift to give him like everybody else did. But I wanted to stay with Jesus so much, so I thought about what I had that maybe I could use for a gift. I thought maybe if I kept him warm, that would be a good gift. And Jesus told me, if you keep me warm, that will be the best gift anybody ever gave me. So I got into the manger. And then Jesus looked at me and he told me I could stay with him for always. The wisdom and the brilliance of a child who saw way beyond the lovely story of the birth of Jesus. But it took him to a place where he saw the light. Even at age 6, he saw that this story was speaking to him in a deeply personal way. As little Misha finished his story, his eyes brimmed full of tears. The little orphan had found someone who would never abandon nor abuse him, someone who would stay with him for always. What I have discovered in my own spiritual journey and in my own experience with Jesus is that because I have spent a lifetime learning the stories, making the stories a part of me, as I spent a lifetime studying his teachings and the things that he did, they've become a part of me. I totally get where Misha is in the sense that, yes, I am in that manger with him too. And it is the stories of Jesus and his teachings that have enlightened me to help me to go to that higher realm, go beyond of just having clarity of who I am as a human being and my purpose, but to see how I am a part of something much greater than just my physical self and my geography. But what I also see in John's teaching and in this text is that I am not Jesus, and Jesus is not me. I am Barton Buchanan, and who I am is a person who is going to work every day to make this world a more beautiful place and a healthier place. And I use my own creativity to manifest that. It's who I am. It's what I do. But I'm not Jesus, nor am I the Messiah, nor am I the prophet, nor am I Elijah. I am Barton Buchanan. I am my own unique expression of God's creation in the world. That's who I am. But what I do have with Jesus is this. I share that same spirit that he had. I share the same spirit that we all have. We all have that divine essence and presence in our life. We are all enlightened in that way. It's just spiritual journey is recognizing it more deeply and more profoundly. So no, I'm not a Jesus. But I share that spirit that he has, and that spirit that's in all humanity, that's in all creation. I believe that. I believe the divine spirit is in all creation, animate and inanimate. It's everywhere. And that's who I am. And I am a witness, and I testify to this beautiful spirit, to this beautiful light. This light of love and grace and mercy and empowerment. And it's a light that if we just open our soul and allow it to shine in, will enlighten and inform us exactly who we are on the grand scale of God's plans. You are not the Messiah, and you're not Elijah, and you're not the prophet, but you are you. And what do you find yourself immersed in? And the way that you spend your time and your energy and your creativity, is it a reflection of who you are in the truest sense? Or is it a reflection of who others want you to be? It's important questions. What do you find yourself immersed in? Does it bring you joy? Does it bring you accomplishment? Do you feel like you're making the world a better place? Because my sense is that whatever we find ourselves immersed in, if it's fulfilling and it gives us a sense of purpose and a sense of joy, even if it's hard at times, still gives us a sense of purpose and joy, then we are baptized in that spirit and we're doing and being the people that God created us to be. So, who are you? And why are you doing what you do? Who are you? And what are you baptized or immersed in? Who are you? Thus ends the lesson. Amen.